Hello, everyone. It seems like everybody is now entering, so we'll wait maybe just 1 minute to have more people, and then we'll start right away. Maybe just a quick reminder for everyone who is joining right now. We have sent in a few moments ago an email with an access to a Landbot that helps you to prepare for the webinar session. So you can go to that bot if you haven't checked it out before, because you can use the bot also to post questions you have during the webinar, right? So any question you might have, you can send it to the bot, and in the end of the webinar, we will go through some of those questions and share it with everybody. All right. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me today. This is a Landbot webinar where we teach you how to do webinars in the right way. Let me go quickly through the webinar agenda. First, I want to make a brief introduction to the webinar marketing, the why, the what, and the how to use it. Secondly, I will do a live demo to show you how to build your own webinar marketing system from scratch. And finally, we will enter the Q&A session where we will address some of the questions you guys might have during the webinar. So as we have a lot of content we need to share, let's start right away. Let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. I'm sharing my screen already. So I think everybody right now is kind of affected by the COVID-19 situation, which is transforming every business into a remote company today. And as a consequence of the coronavirus, the webinar adoption is growing exponentially. It seems like everybody is trying to do a webinar today. So why are so many businesses using webinars? There are many reasons. The first one is a webinar has the highest customer engagement. Secondly, it drives significant sales conversion efficiency. It also allows the brand to grow their awareness. And finally, webinar works across the entire customer journey, whether you want to do lead generation, deal closing, or customer retention. The problem we have is like when everybody starts doing webinars, the playbook we have will become outdated. And that's what's happening right now. Here is what you can see, the typical webinar playbook from a customer perspective, right? They land on the site, fill the form, get some email notification, join the webinar, and later we might be calling them, we're not. And this playbook is having a broken experience. That's why we are proposing a new way to engage with our customers and driving sales using webinars. We call that the webinar marketing, right? So there are 4 main changes. The first one is instead of using acquisition funnels, where each customer is just a number of your funnel, we want to treat each user as an individual person and leverage them to help us acquire more users using referral programs. Secondly, instead of using boring forms, we want to have a conversational experience when collecting data from our users. And thirdly, instead of passing lectures, we want to have an interacting experience with our customer. And finally, we will stop doing generic follow-ups and leverage all the data we have collected from customers to doing true personalized engagement with them. With all that, we have came up with a complete new framework. We call that the webinar marketing framework, which covers the whole cycle since the pre-webinar to the ongoing webinar all the way up to the post-webinar, matching up with the maturity of our customers. I think many people might think webinars is something that is only useful for B2B type of businesses. Well, in reality, with the COVID-19 situation, it has changed dramatically the behavior of our consumers. So right now, even B2C type of businesses are embracing webinars to drive engagement and sales with their customers. One very interesting example is, for example, the lipstick king, Jiaqi, the man who sells most lipsticks on earth, right? So Jiaqi is a social influencer who is leveraging webinar shows to promote and sell all sorts of lipsticks to their audience. And among his past records, he achieved in 5-hour webinar show with 119,000 webinar assistants and closed 500,000 deals. That's amazing. Another maybe a little bit more modest, but still great example is from Scott Britton, the webinar guru, who did manage to sell webinars to 230 attendees with $11,000 as deal closed in just 1 hour. So proportionally, he had even better conversion rates than Jiaqi. Now that we have seen some of the great examples of webinar marketing and also its fundamentals, I want to take the next step and teach you how to use and how to build a webinar. I want to make this session very interactive because I think the most value lies into the practical part of how to use this for your own business, right? So if you have used Landbot in the past, I think you will catch up right away. But I will try to go into some of the basic levels so you can understand how to build everything yourself. I'll mainly go through 3 tools. The first one is obviously Landbot, which will be the central piece of the whole system. The second one is Zoom, which will be used to host the webinar. And the last one is Airtable, which we will be using as our database to store the user information. Okay, so let's go to the Landbot. So this is like the dashboard we have when you log into your Landbot account. You can see many different bots you have available, you have built. And to understand how Landbot works, let me try to use a very simple example, right? So Landbot is a communication automation solution that helps you to communicate automatically with your customer. And here what you are saying is the workflow builder where you can define and set up workflows that will allow you to interact with your customer. The logic of the bot is basically, it consists of different blocks. Each block represents an action that bot will make, it will perform. And then you define how is the logic of the bot. So say, for example, I want to build a very basic flow to ask username and then user email. And maybe after getting the email, I want to say something funny, right? We have an integration with Giphy, so it allows you to get some funny GIFs. And once we have done this, let's save it. We can go to the share section to test the bot out and see what have we built so far, right? So hi there, I'm Landbot. This is the welcome message. We start, what's your name? I will say Jiaqi. Then what's your email? That's my email. And awesome, right? So this flow, as you can see, is very, very standard and not so different than any typical form-based interaction. Let's try to add something to make the experience better, okay? So the next two features I'm going to show you is first, conditional logics, and then hidden fields. So the first one is conditional logics. As the name indicates, it's something that allows you to define a condition, and then based on whatever the condition is, you define an outcome, whether the condition is matched or not, right? So this allows us to do things like the one I'm going to do. If name is set, which basically is like if we have the name as a data, then we should skip the first question. And if we don't, which is the red angle, then we should ask the name of the user, okay? With conditionals, you can define many different types of conditionals. This is just one example. And then the next one we're going to use is what we call the hidden fields. The hidden fields basically is a way for you to pass data using the URL, so you don't have to ask the data explicitly to the user. So I have here, for example, put the name as a hidden field. Okay, let me save this, and let's see what how can we use this. Okay, in order to use the hidden fields, we need to use a format like this. Say what is the variable we want to pass through the hidden fields, and then what is the value of the variable. In this case, it's Jiaqi. Okay, so let's start the flow again. You can see as I already have the variable name, it skips the question of name and it goes directly to what's your email. And then it says awesome, right? So with these type of interactions, we can reduce dramatically the experience when we are, we can improve dramatically the experience when we are interacting with customers, because we don't have to ask all the questions if we have all the already the information in our database, right? Then the next thing I want to show you how to use the Landbot is what we call the bricks, right? So remember, each block represents an action of the bot. And if we combine different blocks together, we create a brick. A brick is essentially a combination of different blocks that perform an action, right? And in this case, this brick has these blocks that we have built before. Okay. The good thing with bricks is it allows you to treat the bot building as a very modular process where you can define different type of bricks to perform specific actions, and then you can reuse them in different bots. So the building process will be much efficient. And that's where I want to start to show you the brick library, right? So the brick library is essentially a collection of different bricks that we have previously built, and we can use them to define our bot flows. In this case, I want to use a brick called Zoom registration, which is essentially what we are going to use to register people to a Zoom webinar. Okay, so let's see what does the Zoom registration block has inside. It has essentially the conditional logic block for name, right? Like we had before. And then it also has for email, just in case we also have the email from the user. And then here it has a new block called Webhook. Webhook is basically a block that allows you to connect all the data you have in Landbot to any third-party system as long as they have an open API to connect with. And in this case, this webhook is basically allowing us to connect with the Zoom APIs. When people hear APIs, they usually become a little scared because they think it's very technical, it's very complicated. Well, I believe with the webhooks, the way how you manage to use the API is very simple, and it can be learned very easily. In fact, I'm going to teach you right away how to connect with the Zoom API, right? So to connect with the Zoom API, we need three main data. First, an URL that allows us to connect with the API. Secondly, the webinar ID to where we need to send all the data we have collected from the bot. And finally, we need to have an authorization token that gives us the permission to send the data. How are we getting those three data? Well, the first one is usually already here, so you don't have to change it. The only thing you need to change is the number that you see here. This is indeed the second data, which is the webinar ID. So how are we getting the webinar ID? Well, if you are doing webinars with Zoom, you can log into your Zoom account and you can go to the webinar session, okay? And in the webinar session, you will have the list of webinars you are going to do. And in the webinar session, you can get the webinar ID. So here, for example, for this webinar, this is the webinar ID, right? And for the second webinar, this is the ID. What you need to do is just copy that ID, coming back, and then paste it here, just the numbers, okay? The next step is getting the authorization token, right? And the authorization token is something that you can get also very easily. So essentially, you need to go to marketplace-zoom.us, log into your account, and then go to develop, build app, need to create an GWT app, which is basically the one we'll go to use for the webinar. In this case, I already have it created. And once you have created the app, need to see the GWT token, which is something looks like that. And what you need to do is just copy that and paste it here in this section, keeping the beer because the beer is always something you need. So you just paste it, the token you have copied from there. And the rest of the webhook is you can leave it just as it is if you don't need to change anything. Okay, so for example, in the request body here, what you are doing is you are sending all the information you're collecting from the bot to the API using this format. And then once you have defined all that, you save it. And with that, you have connected correctly with the Zoom API. And if you do now a test signing Landbot to the Zoom, then you will automatically start receiving your webinar registration in your Zoom account. Okay, I'm not going to do that because I want to move right away to the next point. If you are having any doubt or I'm going too fast, don't worry, because after this session, I'm going to share the recording with everybody so you can follow my instruction by your own. So next step we want to do is connect all the data we have collected from Zoom to Airtable. Okay, for those that who don't know what is Airtable, it's essentially a very powerful spreadsheet that allows you to use it as a database to collect data and connect with different systems in a very dynamic way. So again, as I have already managed to build a brick before with Airtable, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the Airtable brick that I'm going to use, right? In this case, this one. And I'm just connecting it with the Zoom block. And then with that, I'm going to receive the information from to Airtable. Let me try to show you what the end result of the block looks like. Okay, so if you have done the complete flow using bricks, you will see a flow looks like this. Okay, so here it has many different bricks that I have prepared beforehand. The first one is the Zoom brick that we have seen before. The second one is the tracking block. If you are into, if you are using Google Analytics or Facebook Pixel, you can use this to collect the data and track it. The next one is the Airtable, which is the one I'm going to show you right now. So in the block of the Airtable, it has only one block, which is the Webhook block. In this case, we are using this Webhook to connect with the API of Airtable. Okay. The way how to connect with Airtable is kind of similar to Zoom, where you have to get first the URL, then the authorization token, right? And then the data that you want to send to the user. Okay, let me try to show you in this case, how can you get this data? Okay, so here, this is a Airtable account. I'm not sharing this right now, sorry. Let me try to share my screen again. Okay, so I think now I'm sharing the screen again. And so this is the Airtable account I have set up for the webinar marketing system. Okay, and this is the one that I have connected also to the Landbot. In order to connect the Airtable with Landbot, you'll need to get also the URL and the token. So in order to get the URL, what you need is to come to the Airtable documentation, okay? Find the table that you want to connect, because you can have multiple tables, right? In this case, I have 4 different tables. And then you need to define what action do you want to do. If you want to just sending some information from the bot to Airtable, you can just choose the Great Record option. In this case, you should just copy this URL. So you copy this URL into the webhook, and then you should use the authorization with the beer in your API key. So you need to click here this option. So this is not showing well. Let me try to share it better. Okay, so basically here you can click to show the API token, and then you will have your beer token. Also, you can copy it to your account. And when you have that that token, let me share my screen again. When you have that token and the URL, you just basically paste it in this section, which is what we have here. And then you define what is the data you want to send to Airtable. In our case, we are sending the following data, which is the name, the email, the Zoom registration ID, and the option of if people are referred. The rest of the fields shouldn't be modified, so you can just keep like the records with those formats. You know, in case you want to change some fields, you just start adding new fields here. For example, you can say also company, and you should say add company if that's the variable that you are collecting from the user as well. And with that, you can define a new field in Airtable to get the data. Okay, so as we have already done this, let's try to do a quick test to see how does it work when we connect Airtable with Landbot. Okay, so I'm trying to have a Landbot already here. Let me refresh it. I'd say I want to get access to the webinar. As you can see, I have already previously set up the hidden fields. So there's many data that is being collected right away. So we don't have to ask all this information to the user when they're signing up for the webinar. And with just one click, we are collecting all that information in the Airtable. And now if the user say, hey, I want to refer a friend to the webinar, right? They can share this link with their friends. And then their friends, when they sign up, let's do a test. For example, if in this case, my friend is Chavi. As my friend doesn't have the hidden fields, he will need to put all that data. So the name and the email. And once Chavi has signed up for the webinar, right, we are getting the data also right away to our Airtable spreadsheet. And then Chavi can either refer to another friend or contacting Landbot. And this step is what we mentioned before as changing the acquisition funnels to acquisition loops. So you can use your own users to bring you more users. So with this, we have explained the first step of our webinar marketing system, which is the acquisition part. The whole webinar marketing system has actually 3 stages, right? The first one is acquisition. The second one is engagement. And then the final one is conversion. Due to the time limit, I'm only going to share the acquisition bot, but in the follow-ups, we will share also a template for you to build your engagement bot and your your conversion bot, which all of them is also associated to the Airtable system. You can see, for example, in the engagement, we are basically connecting with users during the webinar to ask them or to allow them to ask questions that we will later on address during the webinar. in the conversion section, what we will do is we will basically ask some questions regarding the experience about the webinar, as well as offering some exclusive offerings to the users and making them convert to the next step of our conversion funnel. As I'm saying, all these are included in the follow-ups that we will send you to everyone who is attending the webinar. Okay. So now that we have seen the introduction of the webinars, webinar marketing system, the way how can we build a bot that can help us to engage with users and acquire leads with the webinars. The final step for us is to kind of address some of the questions you have during the webinar, okay? But before that, we want to offer we want to make an exclusive offer to everybody that is attending this webinar. So as we understand that you don't have all the time to do the webinar marketing system by yourself, we have prepared a webinar marketing kit that helps you to adopt a very fast and very simple the webinar strategy we have shared here. So the webinar market kit consists of the webinar marketing playbook, where we are going to share some of the things in much more detail about how to do webinars. We will share the presentation and the recording of this session. It includes 1 year access to Landbot Pro account. It also includes the template to the webinar marketing bot that we have seen before. It includes the template also to the Airtable system, so you can use it right away. And then finally, a one-on-one call session with me, where I can help you to define your webinar marketing strategy, right? So all this is included in our webinar marketing kit, which is which has an initial value of 1.4K euros. But in order to make it more affordable to everybody, we have reduced the price in half. For just about 700 euros, you can get the whole webinar marketing for yourself. The way how you can get access to the webinar marketing kit is basically using our promotional code, which is WVM 2020. And then upgrading into a Landbot Pro account. Once you have done that, we will share the detailed next step to you. So let me try to share the instruction on how to upgrade to the Landbot account here. So basically, if you have, let me try to log into one test account so you can see the whole flow. Basically, you need to log into your Landbot account. And then once you are in your Landbot account, you need to go to the subscription section. Okay, you need to go to the subscription section. Choose, if you haven't have any plans, you should first add the payment method. And once you have added the payment method, you will be able to choose a plan. I'm not seeing my plan here. Okay, sorry for the technical details. It seems this account is not available for changing the plans. Well, we will share more details on how to do the upgrade afterwards. Okay, so let's try to address some of the questions maybe the audience has. In fact, I'm also going to share the list of questions. So here are the list of the questions people has made while we are doing the webinar. Okay, so let's go to check some of them. The first one is, how does Landbot connect with Zoom, right? And it has like 26 votes, so it's one of the most asked questions in this case. I already explained before, we are using the Zoom API connection. In case you have question about how to do the API connections, we will share some documentation afterwards so you can do it yourself. How can I build a webinar system like the one Landbot is using? As I mentioned, we will share the presentation and the recording afterwards. And if you want to have the complete access to the webinar marketing system, you can purchase our webinar marketing kit. And with that, we will help you to set up the whole system. How can I build a bot similar like this one? We will share the template of the bot that we have showed before. With the templates, you will be able to use some of the flows that we have showed before. So the template is basically in the template section, right? Where we have 3 templates. The first one is the acquisition, which is the one we have shared before. The second one is engagement, which is the one we are using to get the question from everyone. And the final one is the conversion, which is the one we are going to use after the webinar. Have you done any research on what type of chatbot achieves the highest conversion rate on landing pages? So we have done many researches on how some of our customers are using bots and are converting. And with those researches, we have built those templates that allows users to get the flow that is converting most. So the easiest way for you to leverage the system is try to use some of the bot template that we have set up, so you can start with a flow that can allows you to get the highest conversion. How does Landbot connect with Airtable? This is also something we have explained already during the webinar. So I hope you understood more or less how to do it. How can I automate my sales process in a web shop using Landbot to help customers find what they are looking for and entice them to buy the product? This is a very interesting question indeed. In fact, we have a special use case where we connect Landbot with Airtable to getting product information dynamically into Landbot and then allowing people to make purchase. We can share some information afterwards to everybody who has voted this question, so you can see how to set up a similar process for your bot. The next one is how I would compare your solution with your competition. Can you suggest a name? Right, so a very good question. Landbot is a communication automation solution, and in that sense, we have a certain overlap with different type of solutions depending on the way you are using us. For example, if you are trying to replace Landbot with a form, we are actually competing against solutions like Typeform, SurveyMonkey, or Google Forms, right? And the advantage Landbot has in those cases is it allows you to have a very dynamic experience, not only collecting data from users, but also personalizing experience with those data and getting information back to the user, which maximizes the conversion rate. And if we are comparing us to purely bot solutions, we have, in this case, bot solution providers like ManyChat, Chatfuel, who are specializing in building chatbots for the Facebook Messenger environment, which we also are able to do. But in the core strength of Landbot is building bots for the web environment, where you can, you as the company can control a lot the look and feel of the bot, and how can you set up the experience deeply integrated with your own system, right? So this is the another advantage of Landbot. And finally, if you are comparing us with some customer support solutions like Zendesk, like Intercom, well, in those cases, Landbot is actually very complementary to those solutions, where Landbot is helping people to do the automation part, and then the customer support solution is helping you to perform the human management part, where you can have human agents to answer and reply. And it's very complementary between them. We have, in fact, a native integration with Zendesk, we allows you to connect with Zendesk and then handling conversation with human agents from Zendesk. The next question is, how can you leverage a database from an existing platform to personalize messages on Landbot? This is a really very good question also. So depending on what type of platform you have different options. The very first one is what I already shared, which is using the hidden fields, right? So using the hidden fields, you can connect with any type of system that allows you to sending information using the URLs, right? In our case, in the first example, for example, we were sending some of the user information, like the referrer, the name, the email, the registration ID. So those information, we are able to send it through the URL. For example, you can use MailChimp, which has this function to send the variables using the URLs. Another way to connect with a third-party database is to using the webhooks. So if you are using, for example, I'm not sure, HubSpot, well, you can connect with the webhook using webhooks to the HubSpot database, and then getting information from the user back from the database, and then using that in the bot as way to personalize the experience. What are your major sales points for us considering this solution? So I think the main advantage of Landbot is it's one of the most intuitive solution in the market that allows a non-technical people able to build and manage bot experience very easily, right? So we have reduced dramatically the complexity of building bots to allow you to set up processes that might be very complex otherwise in a very intuitive way. The next one is, What role will SMS play in marketing? This is another good question. So SMS, I think, is definitely one great channel, which depending on the country you are, is still one of the most popular way for people to interact with brands. In our case, we can help people to connect with SMS providers like Twilio, and then building up bots using SMS systems. Though I believe that with SMS, the main challenge is how to get some of the interactive experience we are seeing with web-based bots, right? Because you see with a web-based bot, you can define actions in form of buttons, in form of GIFs, and all this is kind of more limited in the case of SMS. So I believe SMS maybe in the short term will be more for sending notifications and allowing us to engage with users. But then we should kind of, to drive the, to really drive the interaction and engagement, we should letting them come back to our native, to our website, and then continue our interaction with them. Can we create our bot, our design? Absolutely. So the advantage of Landbot is you can personalize easily the design and the lookout, right? So for starters, we have many templates that allows you to adapt the design of your bot right away. So this is one example. Another one, and if you are even looking for more advanced cases, you can even use the CSS section to customize the design of your bot. The next question: what are the best tactics, Robert, relevant traffic if you don't have an email list yet? I think what you are trying to ask here is, what are the best tactics to get a user email if you don't have any email list yet? Well, there are many ways to get user information, user emails. You can do marketing campaigns. You can do content marketing. You can also leverage social media to have people attention, and then driving them towards your email or your lead generation pages. So all those are options that you can use. Maybe one final question. This one, for example: how can I get most out of Landbot to allow the clients to book a car wash, pay, and organize my team in lead management? This is a very complete question. And in a sense, it's similar to the example we mentioned before of how to use Landbot for a very sales or transactional user case. We will share some specific content around this case afterwards, so you have all the information. But in a nutshell, what we would recommend you to do is first define what are some of the information you would require from the user to be able to sell or to be able to present options for the product you want to sell, right? Then connect those information to a database to get the information of the product, mainly the product price, the product description, maybe some images, right? This can be easily done using Airtable. We have integration with Stripe that allows you to charge right away customers if they decide to choose a product. and then once the customer has purchased, then you can also link those information to your Airtable to synchronize all the information, where your team can maybe work using it as an CRM. And with that, I believe we have closed all the things we wanted to do with this webinar session. I hope everybody had a good experience. And if you still have any questions, please reach out and use the engagement bots, because we will keep collecting all those information. And with every question you have, we will send you a personalized follow-up to address and help you with your question. So thank you everybody for joining me today. Hope everybody stay safe and stay healthy.